Okay, here we go. So each time that we have a chapter to read, I'll try and do a one or two slide or a slide presentation, sometimes two slide presentations to illustrate important points that were over in the reading. That's not to be a replacement for the reading, but to help supplement those important points and make them easier to understand. Usually I'll try to use the same vocabulary that are used in the reading, and so the keywords here are the same as the keywords in the for the textbook in the reading hints, and I'll try and describe what I think are the um, big topics. And so here, hopefully, I'm going to go over some of the properties of life, talk about living organisms. I'll talk a little bit about science and then about human beings. All right, so this slide, what is biology? Biology is the study of living organisms. Okay, those organisms um, are classified in three big domains based on the type of cells and their chemical composition. And so those three domains are the bacteria, the archaea, and the eukaryote. Each domain is divided up then into a series of kingdoms. Again, the kingdoms have many thousands of species. We are in the kingdom Animalia. And the species then are designated each by a unique name. These are true breeding organisms that are potentially able to interact with one another to exchange genes. How do we know living organisms? Well, living organisms have a series of characteristics. They respond to the environment. They have a unique order or organization. They regulate their internal environment, something called homeostasis. They grow, develop, they take in energy and they use it in excrete ways. And then they're able to pass on their traits by a genetic material that can change over time. That's evolution. Among these traits or characteristics of living organisms, among the most important is organization. Even from the smallest structures, the smallest particles in an organization, they are organized. Only certain chemicals appear and they don't appear randomly. They are very regulated and form discrete structures. They form unique molecules that are arranged into other structures. Living units, cells, are arranged very particularly. Groups of cells form tissues in multicellular organisms that can be identified. Several different types of tissues might form organs. Some organs will work with other organs to produce specific jobs, organ systems, and that forms the whole organism. And even after you get to the whole organism, the living things are arranged into populations, species, communities, ecosystems, where the interactions that occur among many organisms can have discrete characteristics and functions. Okay, we're going to talk about humans at all these different levels, at the levels down to chemicals and all the way up to ecosystems, the effects of ecosystems on humans and their effect on the ecosystem. Okay, to do this, we're going to use information that's scientific. What is science? Does science differ from other activities? Well, science doesn't involve technology, special clothing. Science is really a way of solving problems, a, a way of gathering information. Um, what's important about science is this method, and it's really a method of thinking. Okay, in science, we use observations to come up with new ideas, and then we find ways to test those ideas. We call these experiments, but really the important thing in science is these experiments generate evidence, and that evidence is used to evaluate ideas. Okay, in science, ideas that agree with the evidence, predict new evidence, agree with lots of different types of evidence. Those ideas are the best ideas, and they're the ones that we think best describe the natural world. And in science, it's really important that everyone be able to examine the evidence. There's no privileged position in science other than being the first one to identify the evidence. And so we'll talk much more about science next week, but I want to give you an introduction, and so that's it. I also want to talk a little bit about humans, because they talk a little bit in the first chapter about some of the larger issues with humans. Where do we come from? What's our biological origin, and how do we fit into that natural system? And for science, we're really little detectives. That's a picture of an old version of Sherlock Holmes, not a newer version. And in science, we're looking for shared features that help us place humans among other animals. Okay, and so we examine the anatomy, the behavior, the ecology, and the genetics of humans and other animals to see which are most similar to us. Okay, we are clearly animals because we do things animals do. We ingest food, we have muscles, we have nervous tissue or brains. And out of the animals, we most closely resemble other vertebrates. Okay, these are animals that have bone, and in particular, backbones and spines. Okay, and they all have distinct heads with sense organs. And out of the vertebrates, we are clearly related to the mammals. Okay, we have the features, all the hallmark features of mammals. We're warm blooded and we insulate ourselves with hair. There's only a small group of animals that do that. We give birth to live young and we nourish them with milk from mammary glands. Okay, again, only a small number of mammals do that. And like other mammals, we have teeth that are shaped different in different part of our mouths. We have large brains and flexible behavior. Okay, we're mammals, no doubt about it. Okay, and among the mammals, we're most closely related with the primates. All the primates live in trees and are very good at grabbing onto tree branches and holding on. Primates have grasping fingers and toes. They have binocular vision, color vision, and large brains. Okay, among the primates, the most similar to us are the hominoids. These are orangutans, um, the apes like chimpanzees and gorillas, and they have, like us, grasping hands, but with opposable thumbs, but they also lack claws, and instead they have fingernails. The hominoids are primates that have no tails. And for even among the primates, they have the largest brain and the most adaptable behavior. And they have social characteristics. They live in groups like us, having a long childhood and a very long life. Okay. Among the hominoids, we're most similar to gorillas and chimpanzees. Our anatomy is very similar. Okay. We've even been able um, to take these animals and teach them language in some sense, to get them to speak sign language or use a symbolic language. We also even find them in the wild using tools, sometimes even tools as weapons. They're close to us in that they have genetics that's extremely similar. Okay, and so among the animals, they're the closest to us, and we take that as true because of all the evidence that's been acquired by through experimental evidence, through observation, etc. Okay. All right, so that's the end of this narrated slideshow. This is meant to help you out, not to replace the reading. Make sure you do it. And I'll try and get each of these up in the day or two after the materials open for the week.